Gianni Lowry. I'm your moderator today, and we have Armand, Kayla, Nick, Andre, and Hayden, and we are Phase 6. The first thing we're going to be talking about is understanding gun control laws. So, looking at California, they have very strict gun control laws, and a lot of them, versus, down south, like Texas, Louisiana, Alabama. What do you guys think about that?
These states have had problems with gun control laws. Giffords.org is a site I found that shows rankings of all 50 states regarding gun control laws. California, New Jersey, Hawaii, and Connecticut have some of the top because these governors are protecting our civilians with strict gun laws. While this may be the case, there are some improvements for each of these states. For example, California should watch out for ghost guns because those can still be a problem. And while shootings have still occurred in California, death rate has mostly been decreased because of these higher strict gun laws.
Yeah, I think something to when we're talking about gun control safety or gun control in general, it's really important to understand the root of the problem. I wouldn't say the problem itself, but the root of the discussion, right? It's the Second Amendment, where it's the right to bear arms. And so a lot of American citizens rally hard for the right to bear arms, meaning that hey, it's my right to own a gun. But today I feel like we're here to discuss the necessity of the ability to own a firearm, the ability to own AR-15s and stuff like that.
Yeah, they have their right to bear arms, but what do you need a semi-automatic rifle for?
I agree.
You have your right to own a pistol, a shotgun, but a rifle?
I agree.
What's the point for that?
I agree.
Something like that causes way too much harm into our community, like schools, concerts, rallies. You just see way too many mass shootings with these types of heavy automatic rifles, and I feel like that right to bear arms needs to be clarified because it's an outdated term. There wasn't these types of strong machinery weapons during those times.
Yeah, 100%. And the difference between state to state and the different gun laws from state to state, that needs to be a little more restrictive, I feel because the statistics show. Hey,
I feel like states are taking a lot of action though, especially recently with all the shootings, right?
Correct.
But what the real problem is accessibility, I think.
I agree.
Because I looked online, there's actually more guns in the United States than people.
Wow.
It's 120 to 100 ratio or something crazy.
That's scary.
Wait, you're saying 120 guns
to
one
yes.
person?
No, to 100 people, that's the ratio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha,
so
gotcha.
the guns are out there. It's the accessibility is the real problem.
Yeah.
They can keep on having stricter gun laws, but
Going back to what Hayden said, so California is one of the more stricter states on gun control. Our governor Newsom has made it so we have over 100 laws against guns, and it really does take a toll because we also have 37% less deaths compared to other states.
Yeah.
I think there's a really big distinction in the vernacular that we use when we have to talk about this, right? So you said that there's 100 laws against guns. I don't think it's necessarily that California has laws against guns. I think California has 100 more laws that promote gun safety.
Yeah.
Right. So when we start using vernacular like that, then the conversation opens up to people that are pro-gun, right? If we say, hey, let's promote gun safety, I don't think anyone is gonna say no to having more gun safety.
The word law sounds more harsh compared to safety.
Or I think anti-gun versus gun safety is a really big distinction we need to make.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
If we market to these other states hey, we need to have more gun safety laws, that's going to change the discourse of the conversation to be hey, look, we agree that gun safety is a really, really big issue.
I agree with that because I feel as if the right to bear arms is so vague.
Yes.
What does that mean? Kind of like what Nick was saying. Do you really need a rifle? Now we don't know because it's that's an arms. We're the right to bear them.
Right. So
Definitely
maybe we clarify that the right to bear arms, right? Some people think that when they are born, it is their God-given right to own a gun, right? But I think maybe we reform that and you have to earn a gun, right? Just like you have to earn your nursing license or your driver's license. You don't just get that. It's a privilege to have it, but you have to earn it.
Yeah.
I definitely think that it should be harder to obtain a gun than it
Yes.
is to obtain a driver's license.
Yes.
Right? Especially because, it's something that could end lives
Exactly.
in almost an instantly,
Yes.
almost, right? But like we have 16-year-olds here driving cars to school, driving to work, and all that kind of stuff. But then as soon as you turn 18, without a license, I can go to a Big Five and buy a gun. You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me to give that power to people that haven't earned or like haven't been recognized by a governing body that they know how to use it. They know the safety, safety behind a gun, stuff like that.
So are you saying to have like a difficult screening test to give you the ability to own a gun?
100%. 100%.
And how do you think that would go? Like, what do you think that should be like? What should it be for?
I think you should take like a mental health screening,
Yeah, definitely.
right, to show that you are mentally capable and aware of what a gun can do,
Right.
right? I think you need to pass a test, a live test where you know how to load and unload a gun,
Yeah.
right? And then you also have to pass like a written test where you know the laws around guns, like how to properly store one, right? How like keep it out of the reach of children,
Right.
stuff like that, so that as a community, we know that everyone that does own a gun knows how to use it properly.
It should not be easier than getting a driver's license.
100% it should be. 100%
We should have like the same core system as like getting a driver's license.
I think it
But
should
for
be.
guns.
I think it should be stricter.
It should be stricter.
I think you have to renew your the screening test, like take it every year. 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm on the
True.
road. I've been driving for like 2 years.
You haven't been
Yeah.
retested.
Yeah. People would need to be tested again. You can't just pass a test when you're 16 and then be able to drive for the rest of your life. Like
Yeah,
what-
like
Yeah.
so driver's license get renewed like what, once every 5 to 6 years,
yeah.
right? I think your gun license should have to be renewed like every year,
I think so.
Yes.
every 6 months.
No, and I wasn't.
Definitely.
I was just saying driver's license to give you guys an idea of like something that you have to
Yeah.
renew and practice for, right? But I think this is a good segue into our next point. Like, how do we argue for stricter gun laws, and like, what about arguing for the people who necessarily don't want stricter gun laws, right? We talked about the screening. I think that's a really good way to hold people accountable, make sure people are still responsible enough
Yeah.
to hold and carry a firearm, right? But like, what are some other ways that we can reform the system so that it pleases not just the people who are pro-gun, but the people who are anti as well?
I also want to point this out. There's a series I've seen on 80. It's called The First 48, which investigates homicides. And if I believe I'm correct, most of these episodes, the homicides were gun-related. And the common states were Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Georgia. This goes to show us a symbol that these states have lacked major gun control laws, especially Texas. In 2022, Texas suffered a massive shooting at a school that left multiple people dead. And now just recently, there was another shooting in Texas that left 5 dead, all because one man was shooting a gun. People were complaining about noise. This man killed them execution style, and he ran, thinking that he could get away with this.
Yeah, so I think like the way that we start this discourse is by comparing the different states and their restrictions on like gun control
Yes.
and their like shooting rates,
Yeah.
right? Like
Correct.
if we take like he said a state like Texas or Oklahoma, and we take a look at like okay, so here are the laws on restrictions on gun control. Like how easy is it to get a gun in this state? And then if we compare those to like how many shootings happened in that state per capita or something like that,
Yeah.
then I feel like there would be, or my gut feeling is there would be a direct connection between violent gun crimes and how easy it is to obtain a gun in that state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure all of us have heard about the Sandy Hook incident.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes, we all
And-
have.
And it's a very tragic incident. But going back to that, Tennessee has like very little gun strictness,
Mhm.
and that's where I feel like people that are pro-gun and anti-gun would come to an agreement to realize like, yeah, maybe this is a little iffy. We should probably fix this up because we don't. Parents would hate to lose their kids in like a school
100%.
shooting,
Right.
Indeed.
and it could have been prevented.
Well, you know what the crazy part is? In Tennessee, they still haven't passed gun reform laws.
That's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Even if we account for like the recent shooting at a school that just happened a
Yeah.
few months ago. Not even a few months ago, like it was like last month,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And Tennessee still hasn't seen the reform that needs to be made in order to keep these kids safe, right? Like, does anyone know what the number one cause of death is for children and teens in America?
What?
It's a gun.
It's a gun.
Right.
It's gun violence.
Yeah.
Many think that the cause of this were results of car crashes or drug overdoses,
No,
It's
gun.
guns.
but
Yeah.
it's gun violence.
I think adding on to that, like also mentioning your Sandy Hook thing, you would think that after like Sandy Hook happened, guns would go down and people would more be like, oh, we don't want guns. This is like, we're worried about like our children. Actually, gun sales went up after that because people thought they had the right to bear arms and then protect themselves from guns.
Right.
I think it's I think people just need to be more educated on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like you said, like more guns were put into the system after Sandy Hook, right? If more guns are in the system, doesn't that statistically increase the chance of another
Yeah.
mass shooting or another gun violence incident?
Yeah.
Right? I don't think the answer here is more guns. Like you can, it's like fighting fire with fire.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't fight guns with more guns. You fight guns or gun violence with restriction, with lobbying. You
Right.
fight it with like the system that's in place that's supposed to protect us. It's not protecting us anymore. It's actively doing harm to us.
So
Yeah.
I think now what we talk about when it comes to like politics is like not every state should be able to have their own individual gun laws, right? Because like as we can clearly see, I found a really interesting website and it showed every single day in the US, different states, how many people got killed from a mass shooting, where it was at, right? That website shouldn't even exist. We shouldn't even have to be putting different states on a website about how many people were killed or injured in a shooting.
Yeah.
You
Right?
said every day.
Every single
Wow.
day in the United States. And most of those states are coming from Tennessee, Alabama, Texas, down south, right? So those states, there's no reason for them to have individual, right? All the states in the United States, we need to come to a consensus about our gun laws.
I agree that whatever change is gonna happen needs to happen at a federal level.
Yes.
That's the only way that we are going to stop this nationwide, right? I'm talking like coast to coast, nationwide. If it happens at a federal level, then we will start to see change.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that like everyone's gonna agree with it, but we have to start somewhere,
Yeah.
right? Like we're over here in our early 20s. Some of us aren't even 20, like in the circle right now
Yeah.
yet, and we're talking about the safety of our future children.
Yeah.
We're talking about like, hey, look, like I myself debate on whether or not I want to have a kid because do I want to send my kid to school with the fear that, hey, like I might come home to a son or a daughter that's been shot?
No, we shouldn't even be having this conversation,
Yeah.
right? But like, it's a big problem. And when you look at the different states, like, you know, like California, right? We don't have nearly as many mass shootings, deaths, or injuries from these types of incidents. And you look down south, and they happen every single day. So when we come to a consensus, right? Like Andre said, not everyone is going to agree with it. You know, there's going to be people on both sides of the spectrum, but when we come to that agreement, it will affect the safety of everyone, our future generations, you know, all of us that are about to go to college, right? It's going to better the like whole situation for everybody.
Yeah.
It all just starts with a step. You
Right.
just gotta make a movement.
You
It's
have
got to
do
start
this.
somewhere.
We have to start. Some states just have to start from scratch and work their way up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%.
And I think
Reduce-
definitely like political sides do take a heavy effect on that because
Yes.
like how you say like down south, that's more like Republican sided.
Exactly.
And I found that like Republicans, they believe like having a gun is like their human right.
God-given right, yes.
God-given right, just like what you said earlier. And then also saying, oh, I also found that the National Rifle Association, they actually help like the fund Republican side, so it kind of benefits more for them if they support it as well. So that kind of like,
It's definitely a heavily lobbied area of
Yeah.
politics.
Yes.
100%.
And I want to add something. If this is such a problem with the South being so heavily Republican, why hasn't most of the U.S. sued the NRA for negligence?
Okay, so it's kind of a really slippery slope
Yeah.
when you're talking about the NRA because the NRA lobbies so many Republican politicians, right? It's within those politicians' favor to not do anything against the NRA,
Right.
right? And like because it's written into the Constitution, it's like written almost into the lifeblood of what this country is, right? Like not many people are gonna take a negative step against the NRA,
yeah.
which I think sucks, you know? Like we're talking about lives here, you know, we're talking about children
Yeah.
dying, literally dying. Like
Yeah, you would think some people would catch on that we need to reform and do
Right.
better,
Yeah.
but I mean, some people are greedy and they're selfish, and sadly, like that's the world we live in. Like, there's a lot of politicians who just don't care, right? If it's not directly affecting them, it doesn't matter. But like, that's why we have to take a step in the right direction and get everyone on the same gun laws, and we just have to come together as a people.
Yeah.
Like if we're taking a look at the gun problem specifically in schools,
Correct.
right? And we look at other nations that have stricter gun laws, right? It's a problem that's unique to us alone.
Yes.
Like no other nation in the world has this problem where like kids are getting shot at school,
No.
Right.
right? And it's like we are like the laughing stock of the world in
Right.
in that area because we're a first world country, we're really developed, we like the American dollar is high valued, but our kids get shot at school
Every day.
every day.
Right.
Yeah.
Every day there's a
It's
new
on the
one. I don't know. It's crazy to me, but
And I think like adding on to that, how you're saying like our nation, when we compare ourselves to other countries, like I found that Japan, they own people who want to own a gun can only own a shotgun, and that's just for like sportsmanship,
Yeah.
like hunting or like gameplay.
You have to meet the requirements to own that gun.
Right, and there's like their gun control laws are way stricter than ours, and they are like one of the countries that has the least amount of like gun violence.
Yeah.
I feel like if you really did want a gun, you would have to meet the requirements to getting a gun.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
And it should almost be like a privilege to have a gun.
Yes.
Yeah,
You
that's
have to
where
earn
the,
it.
that's where the screening test comes.
Yeah.
Because I mean, people
We're-
are gonna get guns either way,
Mhm.
right? But
We're not
it's-
saying we should cancel guns out completely because that would only cause more chaos.
Correct.
But we're saying that if we make it a required step to
if we make the process harder.
yeah.
I want to add this. I actually do own a couple of rifles in my house, but I've never fired them. In the future, I'm planning to take, I don't know how to say this, maybe a hunting course, because I want to learn maybe just how to use my rifles for hunting sportsmanship. But I never want to use my rifles to harm lives, because
Right.
just because you have a gun, that doesn't mean you just have the right to hurt people.
I think this is a really good time to bring up like the different types of guns that people can own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is correct, yes.
Like Hayden has hunting rifles, and hunting is a sport
Right.
That's
Yes.
for hunting
Right.
purposes.
for hunting purposes, right? Like you're out there shooting deer,
Or the range.
or the range, or hunting ducks or whatever at from a range.
Right.
Sure, right? But there's no reason for people to own things like AR-15s.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
AK.
Fully
Even
automatic
in the
rifle.
case of self-defense, right? Like
Or
let's
even
Yeah.
hunting, you don't need that.
yeah,
It's
right.
just too much.
And like let's look at this argument where people that do own these types of guns say like, hey, like I need it for home defense. In what situation are you gonna be like 50, 60 feet away from a home intruder?
Right.
Where you're gonna need something that can fire from that far away,
Right.
an automatic weapon that can fire
At that
from
point,
that far
you're
away.
just your intentions are to kill.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right? Like if we're talking about home defense, like rubber bullets are a thing.
Yeah.
Right? Or like non-lethal. I don't know if these exist. I'm not really well versed in like the world of guns, but like non-lethal like shotgun pellets for like birds or whatever. Like it's not lethal. It's still a gun.
Yeah.
But it's not lethal.
Cops use rubber bullets, and that should just show like if they're defending themselves or if they're trying to stop like a tragedy from happening, they're using rubber bullets instead of like actual bullets.
Hmm.
Right, and a rubber bullet, like, it will stop someone in their
Yeah.
tracks, right? It's gonna hurt,
Yeah.
but it's not gonna kill someone, right? You
Yeah.
might get a bruise or,
You might even break a bone.
scratch or so- right?
You might even
but,
break bones.
it's way less of a liability to have rubber bullets.
Yeah.
It's a great form of self-defense.
Yes.
And then, do you guys want people to take the same screening test for rubber bullets to
Yes.
real?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That should be a thing, yes, because some people might mistake rubber bullets for actual bullets.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this is a good time to talk about our solution. So we talked about having a harder screening test. You have to check in if you own a gun. Make sure you are mentally stable to have that. Make sure you're still responsible with it. Rubber
Redoing.
bullets. Maybe we don't completely get rid of actual bullets, right? But you can only use them maybe for hunting.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different solutions that we can go
Yeah.
with.
I think I feel like this right here is a good start to a solution by just having the conversation.
Exactly.
Right, like getting the knowledge out to people or like starting the discourse behind gun control and gun safety, like that's a start,
Yeah.
right?
Correct.
But I think the next step is like lobbying our politicians to do something about it.
Yes.
Right.
Right, like we live in California where there's a bajillion laws like that prevent you from getting a gun or like are in the way of you getting a gun, which is fine, right? But now we need to show the statistics, like hey, like California does really well with gun safety. Why? Right, and then we take these statistics to different states that don't have much success with gun safety, and we show
Yeah.
them, hey, look, this is what we have done to be successful in this area.
Exactly.
You might want to think about adopting these laws as well, or maybe even changing a few, but like anything to restrict the accessibility to guns,
Right.
right? And then once we get that changed on a federal level or from state to state, then we can start talking about like changing rubber bullets, or we can start talking about like, I don't know, what else did we talk about? We talked about
Carter screening test.
Yeah.
screening tests,
Changing
right?
the guns,
Implementing screening tests,
Checkups.
Background checks.
background checks, mental health screenings, right?
Right.
But I feel like it needs to happen on a federal level first, for sure.
Yes.
Completely.
Indeed, we does.
So we just sit our politicians down. We have to have a conversation, and we all come to a consensus. I think that's our best bet.
I agree.
Yeah,
I would
Comes to
agree
gun
with
control
this.
laws. All right. Well, thank you for watching. Again, we are Phase 6. I'm Yanni Lowry, your moderator. We have Armand, Kayla, Nick, Andre, and Hayden. Thank you for listening.